It's very tricky. Catching oneself being caught in the mind and over flooding our experience being in mind from a place of total clarity. It really requires so much dedication. Like you really have to make your life the first and most important thing if you want to see major changes taking place in your life yourself. If one is just looking for a teacher in a way that one go see a doctor and the doctor will fix him, it's not gonna go far. And most people seeking teachings and teachers come from that perspective. Obviously, this is not what I do.
Yeah.
So,
Like you have some special power that you're just gonna, a magic wand that you
yeah,
can just touch them and woof, they'll be enlightened.
no,
Yeah, a lot of people think you're enlightened. Enlightenment is a one thing, and that's it.
yeah,
So a one event.
no. It's the start of the journey,
Yeah.
I'll say. It's just seeing the people that used to come, I know exactly where they've stopped
Mm-hmm.
and why they can't even go further. Especially when they've come to realize that they're on their own. They have to make the steps. They have to do their homework. So of course I'm there
It's
to point things out. I understand the map and I can help that way, but I cannot do the work for people. And it wouldn't be neither in my benefit nor in people's benefit to do that. Because we're here precisely to work on these things. So we may ascend within the evolutionary path that is already designed for this to take place exactly as it is.
it seems like hard work, but it's just the persistence, I guess, and not getting discouraged, and because we expect something. I do. I mean, I still expect something, even though I know it's not the right way to go about it to expect something, because we already have everything that we gonna be or that we are. It's just a matter of being persistent and pulling the veils
Exactly.
over and over and over again. That's the part that sometimes gets discouraging. It
Yeah.
feels like it's a bottomless pit.
Well, it is. That's the thing. It is, but then again, something in you knows that this is the way.
Yeah.
We must become fully responsible for the way we think, feel, and respond to life unpredicted circumstances that always come our way. It's always going to be like this. It's always going to be, all kinds of people to deal with, unpredictable events. And the only way we can go through is by realizing that we are responsible for the way we are with it all. And it's nobody else's fault. It's our own faults to not be in control of oneself.
Mm.
Yes, there's a reason why it's uncomfortable, but the fact remains that you have to have the attitude of wanting to face everything in order to bring a change within your very experience. Because the only way is to face it. You have to face it and decide to take control over yourself that way. Because otherwise everything is too much. because then you're losing control of your life. You lose control of your life, you get overwhelmed, for
Yeah.
sure. Then again, of course, you have to work on this, right?
Hmm.
So that's the thing. People have to work on these things. Otherwise, it's not enough to know some things. So we must dedicate our life to that in order to see some results.
Hmm.
Like me, I started meditating and I was not even a teenager.
You're lucky.
It doesn't mean it was easy, but I already knew that that was my life.
Mm.
And now I'm not so much affected by everything just because I know that it's all my responsibility to feel the way I feel. So I talk from my own experience. I know that there's no other way.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so yeah, the spiritual path is it's a big journey with
Hmm.
requires a lot of work.
A little bit like if you want to be in the Olympics, you got to train.
And that's the fun of it. It's the training. It's a journey. Must be. So the juice is
Hmm.
it's like when you want something really bad and work for it. It's the whole anticipation that feeds you. Once you get what you want, usually it's then you move into something else.
Yeah. That's human nature, right? Is there ever a time when someone that's enlightened would reach a place where they don't want anything else?
But it's not like you don't want anything else. You get to a place where you realize that you are everything. It doesn't mean you stop being interested in anything. In contrary, everything becomes interesting because everything becomes a mirror to your own infinity. So you become way more interested in that regard. But it's not like you're missing anything. It's not like you're thinking that you should need something else in order to be more or less than who you are
Mm.
or what you have or whatnot. You no longer feel that way. And even when you are interested in some things and some things are not working the way you wish them to work, you still remain at peace with it deep within because you know that your very being remains unaffected by the changes that takes place on the surface. You may feel a certain level of discontentment towards a particular thing if it's not working the way you wish, but deep within you remain in peace, knowing that your being, your very being, is eternal and all encompassing, that everything experienceable, everything taking place in the infinity of your being is within yourself. So there is no lack, there is
Hmm.
no question of more or less.
I see. Hmm.
So it is as if you're simultaneously living on this earth plane, on this level, with all the intricacies revolving around that while being outside of it, while tapping into much depth that you wouldn't experience otherwise. So your life is much more rich in that regard. And it's a richness that has no value in terms of this world. It's a richness that has nothing to do with all the values of this world.
Mhm.
Values that are inherent to your own quality of being, which you know will remain with you even when you die from this world. That's the beauty of it also. And that's also why one remains happy.
Well, what what drives me partly is it's a little bit crazy, but is the fear of rebirth. It's like, to me, this world is so insane. It's like, I don't think I ever want to come back here. and, and I, so that's part of my drive to wake up, because it's like, I want out.
The fact is that we only here because we've believed in this world of mind body consciousness. So we've attached much values into everything on the surface of consciousness as if it was our reality, as we have attached realities to all these negative thoughts and emotions as fear and security and so on, as giving values to everything around desire, sensations, and pleasure, and so on, when it's all just a makeup projection from our own beliefs. So we've been attracted to this dimension in order to go beyond it, to understand that we're more than that, and to break free from it. So that's what we want. We want to be free.
Is it possible that when someone is awakened, that they don't care if they come back? They're okay with that. In a sense, it's not you coming back. it's it's some part of you coming back, like some latent tendencies.
Could be. When you're at that place, you know that regardless, it's all gonna be okay, because you've already cut the very root cause of all karma. So it means that even if you come back, there will be very less effect on your sense of being, no matter what takes place, even if it's can also be very tragic somehow. You will still have the clarity as to know that you're already beyond it. So it won't affect your the way you feel, the way you know for yourself that you've already gone beyond it and standing firm into your truth.
Isn't it possible, though, that whatever is gained in this life, um, on the soul level, isn't it possible that that gain you could lose again? Whatever you have realized on the soul level, if a person was to be reborn in this plane again, because of all the challenges of being here, isn't it possible that that person could take a downturn, so to speak, as opposed to keep going up? It's that same old duality, but
There's no going back. There's no regression. There are stagnant stages, which allows a deepening of your understanding, following which you move beyond. And those stagnation are meant to take place for that very purpose, for a deepening of maturation. Some things that have not been entirely resolved yet. So you're drawn back into them once and for all. So it may appear as if it looks thrown at you. It may feel like you're more stuck in some places, but it's for the right purpose. It's for the total purification from it, out of which you move beyond and ascend. So there is no regression at all,
Okay.
other than the very process following which a pure soul is thrown into existence in order to develop a sense of individuality, out of which consciousness has an opportunity to know itself as an individual, as creation itself. That's the only so-called regression, but within the whole picture, it's not regression, it's just the cycles of life.
Hmm. So, like, perhaps like Ramana would have been a person like that.
Totally, everyone. It's the same path for everybody.
Mm.
Yeah. And even
But you
Ramana,
said something about a pure soul.
yeah. All souls are pure from the start and know nothing of their division with the Supreme. It's the very universal consciousness directly coming out of the Supreme that comes to expand in multiplicity of souls. And this multiplicity of souls take place through wandering individual souls, which need to land on the physical plane in order to experience a sense of individuality. At first, divided from the universal consciousness that it has come from, in order to experience the very sense of individuality. And because it's not separated from everything else, the sense of separation creates suffering and problems, which necessarily even draws the soul within itself in order to understand itself, understand what it's all life about, in order to make its return back into a sense of union with what life is really about. Hence, the soul ascending back into the universal existence while having an experience, a sense of individuality also. But now with that understanding that it is not separated from the whole. That is the purpose. Understanding that we are the whole, but at the same time, having to understand ourselves in relation with the whole while going through this individual experience, which comes to be integrated into the whole. Hence the so-called final stage of realization, that is to bring you're awakening within this sense of individuality in a way that you come to live your life, not from a place of denial or of indulgence, but from a place of integration within the bigger picture, which you can sense, feel, think as an individual, but not in conflict with your truth. In fact, seeing the truth at the very basis of everything taking place in your experience on all levels, physically, the level of emotions, thoughts, and so on. A lot of people in spirituality, as they start awakening, they get stuck in there, in those higher states, and come to develop a sense of self attached to these states. And then they come to live a life in total contradiction with what it is that they talk about or preach or teach, even,
Mhm.
meaning that they have not fully come to a place of true realization. This is a very rare case, as a matter of fact. It's one person over millions of people that comes to perfectly embody that realization as a full circle. You know, so many teachers talking about consciousness, but whether they've fully come to embody that on this level of physicality, that's a total different question. Most of them haven't. Most of them are still prone to cravings and feeding on power and attention and fame, recognition, money, and so on. I mean, it's easy to see, really,
Mhm.
very easy to see.
Yeah.
So, which means that they haven't gone through full embodiment, in which case an individual will be detached from everything of this world, no matter what, will have no possessions, no clinging, no self interest, I'd say, no cravings. There's still, interest, personal inclination, but then there's no attachment to that at all. So an individual comes to just live spontaneously, enjoying life spontaneously, doing whatever it wants to do, but without any attachment, without any sense of self attached to any doing or thinking or sensation.
Mhm. Coming back to the teacher that cares about the students or the devotees. Um, I think it's difficult for people to feel that care.
Well, it can't be understood.
It cannot.
No,
Oh.
because what's really taking place is it's consciousness itself as the universality that it is, that is in fact seeing itself in everyone else, thus wanting everyone else to also be unified with itself. So it is a hard thing to understand from an individual place.
Mhm.
Even as we speak in the moment, it is consciousness itself that is wanting to meet itself as the oneness that it is through different perspectives.
What is this wanting to, so to speak, convert other people?
Seeking confirmation for oneself. Everything happens in its time, and whatever people are doing, whatever it is, it's they have their own dharma, their own path, and in the whole picture, sooner or later, they all drawn to the same place. You go within and know the truth within.
Mhm.
But then again, if your concern is really to help people, then you'll make sure that you yourself stay put in your truth, because that's what you give to the world. And so, if you really want people to kind of wake up to their own truth, this is what you're going to do. You're going to commit to your own truth as much as you can. That's the greatest impact you can have on
Yeah,
people.
it's such a play of the ego. You know, it's so easy to get fooled. I mean, I know it's that, you know, but I still felt, geez, you know, I wish they could wake up and it wouldn't be stuck in this thing or that thing. And even though I don't consider myself that wicked myself. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's part of the process. Every time you catch yourself being caught in some mind patterns out of which you derive a sense of self or try to consolidate a sense of self, every time you catch yourself in it, it's part of how you grow. Because at some point you understand the game. And at some point, these very patterns that you may have found yourself dealing with in the past, you get beyond it. So you wisen up, you mature up, you become more detached and at peace with however people are around you. So it's part of the learning curve to deal with these patterns within. It's like an oyster with a pearl in it. Somehow, some kind of rock gets in there at some point. And so it chews on the rock, its whole life, and it becomes a pearl at the end. It is the same thing with ourselves. We chew on our mind patterns to the point where it becomes integrated within our greater sense of self. And so we move on like this. We mature up and wisen up and become more clear person and true person also. And people recognize it, whether they see it or not, whatever they see, whether they see anything. There's an energy flow that takes place. People feed on it without their knowing. So that's how you make an impact on the world, by being fully committed for yourself and to the truth of yourself. The thing too is sometimes when we wish some people would be different, what it is, in fact, is that whatever it is that we don't like, it's reflective of things that we don't like about ourselves. It's all there is, really. There's areas of our ways of being that we're not at peace with. And when it's seen in other people, then we have a hard time with it.
I've heard this before, but I never really believed it. That I'm having trouble with that one.
Not an easy one, but it's what it is. And it takes place on a daily basis too. When you walk around in public,
Mhm.
Whatever you do, the people you look at, the people that challenge some things in you or whatnot, it's all a reflection of how you are with yourself in relation with these particular aspects that you have either a hard time with or that you like. It's all reflective of aspects within yourself that you're dealing with. Everyone around are just mirror to oneself. What we perceive is all that we project onto them. What is truly there is consciousness, our own self also.
If we can see that we are one, then there shouldn't be any problem because, well, one. So everybody's me, and I'm everybody. But from an individual point of view, like let's say if you see somebody, let's say somebody is being a real loudmouth, okay, just as an example, then you have this aversion to that person. It doesn't mean that you are an loudmouth. It just means that you don't like that kind of behavior. In the bigger picture, it's all consciousness acting as a loud mouth, right? So what's the problem? Is that what you mean?
Even when you think of the ugliness in the world, we've all been there in the sense that we've all, on a smaller scale, maybe been judgmental, having some hatred and wishing the worst for some people, even oneself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So whatever is happening in the world or in our existence on a daily basis, it's all pointers to aspects of oneself. And when there's problems, when there are difficulties, struggle, they are pointers to something inside that needs to be integrated. Things inside that require some attention and peace, relaxation, let go of it, and acceptance. And if you wake up one day and keep that in mind and go in the public and just use that as a practice, look at the things that comes out within you as you look at some people or as you look at how people react or talk and see what's it brings up within you and whether you are capable of bringing your attention into yourself and be in control of what it is that you feel within yourself. You will be surprised.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I would be overwhelmed, I think. Oh.
But like for instance, you could be in meditation at home and very quiet place. Then it's the time to go in the public. Let's say for an hour. And
Mm-hmm.
you go with this in mind and you will see that there can be a
Okay.
lot of things that need to be looked inside, that needs to be integrated into a greater understanding. Just to say that this is why we're here. This is why our life has taken that shape, why things are happening like that. It's all because we need to integrate things within oneself in a way that we can be at peace with it all.
That's a hard one.
And when you do come to that place where it's all depending on your attitude, then by practice you become, of course, stronger in that. And then all of a sudden you notice that you have control over all things that are moving around you as a result. So it makes it really interesting that way. And again, it's not in what takes place, and it's in how everything moves. And that's something that you have control over, and the way you choose to be with yourself, the way you are able to look at yourself and see really what it is that is happening and taking place and act on it and be clear about it. If there are situations where they repeat themselves and it sticks to you, it means there's something that is keeping it around, something that indicates there's a need to look inside and free oneself from something inside that you may not necessarily be aware of. If you are willing to look inside and see what that may mean, then you're most likely going to see something. And it only requires that you see what's going on. And the seeing itself will start a new process, and things will revolve around that and take their own place. They'll be taken care of.
When you haven't awakened enough, the fear of loneliness is huge. They want to feel some attachment to another human.
Oh, they're looking for someone to help them, for someone to make them more happy or give them a sense of direction.
Completion, yeah.
They don't really want a relationship in the terms, in the real sense of relating from a place of truth. It's more like a way to escape from oneself. That's why it does not work. That's why most relationships don't work. But when the magic of life takes place in a way that two people get together and the two people are very clear about knowing that only themselves can make themselves happy, then a relationship can take place on these basis of freedom and truth. And it's not so much about what one wants or don't want. It becomes more like a play or a way of celebrating the oneness.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it requires commitment, fully committed to letting the other person point at your issues, letting them talk about what it is they see in you. And, most people are very reluctant to that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't open up so much on that level. And
Yeah,
that's,
there are very few relationships like that in the
yeah,
world.
that's what love is. True love is relationship. So as much as people look for relationships, as much as they're not ready for it, because they don't have this type of relationship with themselves to start with.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
that's a whole different topic. As I say, as much as people want spirituality, as much as they're not necessarily willing to go inside, it's easier to just be led by the mind and live in fantasies and in an imaginary world than having to face the, the issues within, you know, which has to take place sooner or later. That is what spirituality is about. And it's not so
Mm-hmm.
much about resolving things other than being clear about what's going on with oneself as to how connected we are to our truth or not.